The notable woman of power here was the former president of the country, who was so inept and corrupt that she was impeached, and it was a unanimous decision.
President Park Geun-hye, who has been mired in a massive power abuse scandal, has been removed from office. She is no longer the president of Korea. The 8 justices at Korea's Constitutional Court ruled unanimously this morning to uphold the impeachment of President Park, making her the first sitting Korean president to be impeached.
For the behavioral sinks of the South Korean population, the first is the rampant alcoholism, where the average person of drinking age drinks 13.7 shots a week. That's over double the amount of Russians, for perspective. I consider this a behavioral sink because the creator of the mouse utopia experiment, Jhon Calhoun, wrote that, quote, eating and other biological activities were thereby transformed into social activities in which the principal satisfaction was interaction with other rats. As you'll soon see, the drunken interactions the South Koreans share with each other are some of the only social interactions they will have. The next behavioral sink is a result from that literally disorienting interaction. Adoption is incredibly rare in South Korea. People from other countries adopt South Korean babies, but the South Koreans themselves have adopted just 4% of their unwanted children since the 1950s. The experiments detailed how failings of maternal instincts like abandonment and malnourishment were consistent behavioral sinks observed in the utopias. The next behavioral sink is one of self-mutilation. South Korea is the plastic surgery capital of the world. They had over 980,000 recorded operations in 2014, with 20 procedures per 1,000 people. Both genders are actively removing or altering pieces of themselves despite their limited interactions with each other. The next 2 examples are predictable ones. In the last decade, South Korea's divorce rate has reached one of the highest in the world. In 2001, the divorce rate was 2.8, which was above the EU's average of 1.8 and Japan's 2.3, though below the US's rate of 4. As of 2013, it has fallen to 2.3, and the drop is probably due to the declining number of new marriages taking place. The second example is one of promiscuity. MGTOW men know the drill. All women are like that. It's an interesting video to watch because the majority of the people in the club seem to be women, as the men are isolated and playing video games, but the women are oblivious as their country literally dies around them. The next behavioral sink is one of a mental illness. There is a concept in South Korean culture called agyo, which is basically the infantilization of men. It applies to women as well, but its popularity lies in the male Korean pop stars. My younger sister got into K-pop and anime this year, and helped out with learning about modern Asian cultures. And I tried to find the most masculine looking K-pop star to use as my example. I picked this guy called Jackson from a band called GOT7. I'm probably messing that up, but I think the videos will speak for themselves. Basically, this is a form of dominance on behalf of the females of South Korea. They demasculize the most successful men in their society by making them act cutesy and infant-like, maybe as a way to replace their lack of children. These same stars come to America and act like the typical thug rappers we have, however. They even create homosexual fantasies for the celebrities.
서로 이렇게 자기들끼리 이렇게 팔짱을 딱 이렇게 끼고서 서로 얼굴 보면
한번 또 동작을 좀 보여주세요. 이런 거죠?
네, 서로 이렇게
내가 너를 좋아해 있잖아. 내가 너를 마지막에 맨 마지막에 이만큼. 오케이. 됐어.
네, 그렇죠.
됐어. 자, 맨 마지막에 이거 어떻습니까, 재범?
네.
내가 너를 사랑해. 좋네요. 이래야 하나죠. 이래 가족이니까. 네, 가족이니까. 예. 오케이. 나와주시고요. 자, 갑니다. 안아주시고요. 일단 그립 먼저 가죠. 그립. 자, 이렇게 안고. 아니 이렇게 서로 이렇게 안아야죠.
그냥 남자답게 하자.
겨드랑이로 손 가고. 오케이. 예. 자, 웃으면서. 자, 눈 마주보고.
프로페셔널 좀 하자.
자, 동작 사랑스럽게 하셔야 됩니다. 아니면
좀 남자답게 하면.
성공할 때까지 할 거예요. 노래 불러야 된다. 시작.
나봐.
내가 있어.
나봐.
있어. 이만한 내가 너를 좋아해. 이만큼 내가 너를 좋아해.
The next example is related to Agyo, and it's called the Sosang fan. This obsession of the women over their K-pop idols, who they also infantilize, is part of the mainstream culture, and Korean celebrities are actively followed by about 100 Sosang fans every day. A more traditional behavioral sink occurring in South Korea is its increasing crime rate. It is among the lowest when compared to other developed nations, but the crime rate in 2007 was around 2.9 times higher than in 1978, with the total number of crimes committed rising from 513,000 to almost 2 million. The final and most lethal behavioral sinks are the suicide rates in South Korea, which are the second highest in the world. South Korea has an incredibly hostile culture to men. Before I show you some examples, if you feel an overwhelming sense of anger at what is happening over there, have some consolation knowing that the men are naturally going their own way, perhaps as nature's way of correcting the mistake that is feminism. The first example of hostility towards men is the cultural practice known as manner legs. This is when a tall man spreads his legs while standing to lower himself to the height of women, to be less imposing and masculine. Next is a cultural practice known as manner hands, where the man does not touch a woman in public settings and when taking pictures. This practice not only protects the man from the high rate of false sexual harassment allegations, but it also gives the woman her safe space. From my research, it appears almost all male Korean celebrities practice manner hands, even when they are in other countries.